The first book is fiction. It's a novel, and the core, the foundation of it really is I was trying to think about, as an African woman in Southern Africa, what would our lives look like if Christianity had not happened?
Oh my goodness.
If we were still practicing our sort of spiritual if we still maintained our spiritual practices and our beliefs and our rituals and all of those things, what would life look like? If Jesus had never happened to us, what would we? So that's the question that I was trying to answer through this novel.
What did you find?
So,
what was that? I am curious.
So I tell the story of Sondo. And Sondo is a young girl, and then her family is killed in a political sort of thing. And so she sets out initially to find revenge on behalf of people who have been murdered in this horrible way. And as she journeys, she starts discovering her own powers, so to speak.
Okay.
And so at the end of the novel, she gets to, let me not spoil it for everyone, but basically that's the journey of, the story is the journey of finding spiritual power, magic, some might call it, and that's what it's about, basically.
Welcome to another session of Women in Leadership with Vee. In this channel and in these episodes, we amplify the voices of women in leadership in both corporates as well as entrepreneurship. And I'm excited today because for this episode, I've got a phenomenal woman. She's a project manager, creative writer, and content writer. And I'm going to leave the introduction to her. We've got Noluthando Leonorah. Noluthando, who's Noluthando?
Thanks, Vee. I am a writer, as you've said. I'm an editor and proofreader. I sometimes offer project management services. Basically, I'm multi-hyphenate, multi-passionate person. Yeah.
What does those words mean? Multi-hyphenate. I'm hearing it for the first time. I know as a creative writer, you know what that means. But for viewers out there who may not know what that means, can you please explain that?
It simply means that someone wears more than one hat. You know how people tend to say, oh, this is me, I'm a banker. This is me, I'm a teacher. Now, in 2024, people are doing multiple things, right? So for me, like I do the project management / editing and proofreading / content creating. So, yeah. That's what it means.
I know something today. I'm excited. Okay, you've got these many hats that you wear. How do you keep balance?
For women, and I think you'll agree, balance is fundamental, right? Because we all wear various hats. You're parenting, you're working, you're relationshiping, you're doing all of these things. So for me, balance comes from structuring my day in such a way that regardless of what I need to do in terms of the work side, I still make time for myself, right? I'm a very big believer in the ministry of naps. So I make sure that I have time to take a nap when I need to. You know, I feel like that's something that ideally every single woman should be able to give herself.
That's
you know,
true.
I'm a big believer in that. And then the other thing is I meditate. And those are the two things, the two practices that really help me stay grounded and maintain that balance. Yeah.
Okay. As in these roles, I think you are focused now on writing.
On the writing,
yes. What does that entail? If someone comes and they've got a business and they want a writer, what do you tell them? What exactly do you do?
So what I do is I help you craft your story, right? We live in a time now where there's so much competition, right? If you're going to the market with whatever your product is, whatever your service is, to get people's attention, you need to be able to tell a story that hooks people, that gets them interested in your offering. And so that's where I come in, to help you craft your story in a way that feels authentic to you, and also helps you find the audience and the clients and the customers that you need. So that's primarily what I do. And then I also do ghostwriting, which is where, again, my job is to help you tell your story in a way that feels authentic to you. Because everybody has a story, right?
Okay.
Everybody has a story. We all have books inside of us.
And we are our stories.
And we are our stories. This
Yes.
is true. But not everybody is a writer,
Yes.
right? So you have a story, but you need someone to help you bridge that gap between the story that you have and the words that will help, that will, for the next person to read, for the next person to access that story.
Okay.
And that's what I do. I'll come in and I'll sit with you and get to know you and get to understand your story, and then help you write it so that it's still your story. But I've brought maybe this set of skills that you might not have had.
That's interesting. Okay, so you are a writer in an era where there is AI or ChatGPT, and everybody thinks they are a writer.
Exactly.
So how are you coping with the new tech and AI and writing?
I don't want to say it's been challenging, because in terms of my work, the challenge is really in helping people see the value of the human connection, right? Because anybody can put a prompt into ChatGPT and get content. But will that content do what you need it to do, right? And for many people, what they really want is the story. And unfortunately or fortunately, ChatGPT isn't there yet in terms of being able to bring in that human side of the story that you're trying to tell. Even if it's just a story about your business, you know, people think, it's just a business, there's nothing special about it. But if you want to get customers, if you want to get clients, you have to be able to speak to them in a way that resonates with them, in a way that makes sense to them. And unless you are a storyteller, it's going to be very challenging to get ChatGPT to produce that content for you.
Okay.
So yes, it's tech that is threatening all the creative industries, right? Not just writers, but artists as well. Like, there's a big thing going on about, you know, AI art right now. But I don't think we are there yet at that point where we can rule out the human element altogether. I don't think we're there yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we still are telling African stories.
Particularly African stories, right? Because remember, ChatGPT wasn't developed with us in mind, right? It's like, no, you guys can use it, but actually we weren't thinking about you, right?
That's true.
And so for African stories, we're still here, and we're still trying to do the thing, you know, to tell those stories authentically, with integrity. So yeah, there are challenges, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You wrote a piece on LinkedIn about sexual harassment. What was the message that you wanted to put through?
You know, when I wrote that, I was coming out of my own sort of journey with sexual harassment. You know, I think like many women, this is something that we deal with. Unfortunately, it's a fact of life, unfortunately. And so I had been dealing with that, and I was feeling very angry about it. And I thought, what needs to happen for us to be able to tackle this thing? You know, it's been a thing since as far back. You know, you can go back as far as you want. Sexual harassment has been a thing. And so I was thinking about what needs to happen for us to begin to face this, and to begin to reduce the frequency with which it happens, the prevalence, And so in that anger, I started typing, because again, words are my thing. And so I started typing, and then I was like, actually, this makes sense, right? And so I wrote 2 pieces, I think. One where I was writing about how company owners need to look at sexual harassment and the things that they can do. If you own a company, what are the things that you can do for your employees to limit this thing? Because it's such a
to actually protect the women.
Yes, to protect women, because I realized that business owners really don't care about sexual harassment unless we make them understand how it affects their business's ability to grow. It comes down to the bottom line. Does this affect my profits? If it doesn't, then I don't care. And so I was like, okay, what are the things that we can say to business owners to make them take this thing seriously? Okay. And it's making them realize that actually this does affect your bottom line, because staff turnover becomes high if women don't feel safe. They come in, they go, you're always having to train people, So as a business owner, you should care about that. You should care about how your staff feels, because that is what impacts their productivity. And so basically that was the gist behind it, to say I felt like we need to move away from telling men stop doing this, because they're not going to, right? To saying to business people, it's in your best interest to care about this thing. And so that's why I wrote those pieces.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does your day look like? Let's say the weekday. What does it look like?
So because I work for myself, not all my days look the same, but there are things that I try to keep constant. I don't always win, but there are things that I try to have. And like I mentioned, it's the meditation, it's the nap. So I wake up and I do my meditation first thing. I do my journaling first thing, right? Sometimes it's the journaling first. I'll get up and I'll start writing. Other times I'll get up and I'll go into meditation space. So one of those 2 things, start my day. And then it's getting my daughter ready for school. So she's a big girl now. She doesn't need a lot, but just to be there to make sure she's got everything. So once she's gone off to school, then my day begins. And usually I start with, the usual, checking email, what do I need to do, check the schedule. And then I do my own creative work early in the day, in the morning. I finished my first novel last year.
Oh, wow.
I'm now in the process of editing and thinking about shopping for publishers for that. So that's my own creative work that I do early in the day. Okay. And then later in the day, then I'm working with clients, doing client work, taking meetings, that sort of thing. And then the kids come back from school, and so it's basically that's the end of my work day, unless I happen to have later meetings or I have a project that requires me to work later. Then I'm working later. But generally my day ends when my daughter comes back from school. Then it's just family time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, you are on your own right now, and I know so many women who are looking at you. They're going to be thinking, how does she do that? What advice can she give us? So what advice can you give a woman who wants to start their own business, or who is already in a business?
I'm going to give advice that is kind of unconventional. From a business sense.
Unconventional. We need to think out of the box. Yes, definitely.
And that advice is, your job here on earth is to be happy. That's what you came here to do, right? To find the things that bring you happiness. And so for business owners, particularly for women running business, I would say figure out what your gift to the world is. That thing that you can do that can help, that you can make a living from without betraying your core values, right? So for me, the primary foundational advice is authenticity. You know, whether you're just
so
starting
hard.
out, it's hard, right? It's very
Because
hard.
we go into jobs because we want money.
Absolutely.
And we are frustrated
Yeah.
and we don't perform well, but we are thinking the money,
Yes.
money, I need to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the work then is figuring out, how much money do I need to live the life that I want, and what am I prepared to do for that money? That also gets me to a place of happiness and authenticity. You know, for women, primarily my advice is be authentic in your business. You know, be authentic about what it is that you're doing, about why you're doing it, who you're doing it with. Because betraying yourself, your personal values, for the money, I find that more and more women are discovering that at the end of the day, the money isn't worth it. You've got the money, but you've lost so much more. And so my advice is be authentic. You know, it's hard, I know, and
I'm thinking, I'm trying to even get my head around it, because I'm thinking all we think about is money.
Yeah.
We never really stop and say, am I going the right direction? Am I doing work that I like?
Yeah.
Am I happy? We just money.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of that. You have a job, right? You go to work, and in your job, you know, you start here and you want to move up, because that's what you do when you're at work, right?
Yes.
You always want to move up. What if we stop and think about, do I really need that promotion? Why do I want that promotion? You know, yes, it will get me more money, but will it get me enough money that will actually change my life? Or is it like an extra 20K that, given your lifestyle, actually isn't going to change your lifestyle that much? But now you've got more stress, you've got more responsibility, you've got more pressure at work. And so it's like, these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves, to say, okay, I could get that promotion, but is it helping me meet my goals? Because remember, there's someone who is benefiting from you at work, right? Whoever owns the company, whoever does whatever, their goals are being met because you are going to work. But what about your goals? Are you prioritizing yourself, you know? So, yeah.
Wow. I need to look at my life as well. Okay, let's come back to you. What is in your bucket list? What are the crazy stuff that you want to do that we need to know about, that you are comfortable to share?
Comfort to share is the big word.
Yes.
I think the one thing that I've always wanted to do was write a book, right? And I've just done that. So now it's about getting it out there into the world so that people can read the story, right?
Okay.
So that's one. I want to see the Northern Lights before I die.
Okay.
So, you know, hopefully one day I will get to do that. Yeah. The other things maybe are not suitable for this for this platform.
Okay, no, that's fine. But I think let's put out the book now. What is the book about? What is the title? When do you think it's going to be out there so that women can benefit from it? Other women can benefit from it.
So the first book is fiction. It's a novel, and the core, the foundation of it really is, I was trying to think about, you know, as an African woman in Southern Africa, what would our lives look like if Christianity had not happened?
Oh my goodness.
You know, if we were still practicing our sort of spiritual, if we still maintained our spiritual practices and our beliefs and our rituals and all of those things, what would life look like? You know, if Jesus had never happened to us, what would we? So that's the question that I was trying to answer through this novel.
What what did you find?
So,
Like, what was the? I am curious.
So-
I am curious.
so I tell the story of Sondo, and Sondo is a young girl, and then her family is killed in a political sort of thing, and so she sets out initially to find revenge on behalf of people who have been murdered in this horrible way. And as she journeys, she starts discovering her own powers, so to speak.
Okay.
And so at the end of the novel, she gets to, let me not spoil it for everyone, but basically that's the journey of, the story is the journey of finding spiritual power, magic, some might call it, and that's what it's about, basically.
I'm intrigued. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm interested because there is a lot that goes wrong covered in religion. And I'm really curious to find out, okay, what did Sonto do? How do you want to be remembered? What legacy do you want to leave behind?
I think I want to be remembered as someone who added value to the lives of women, right? I love women so much. And so I want to be that person who, when I have a conversation with a woman, when we part, she feels like, wow, I got something out of that conversation, no matter how small. I try to be that person that is loving primarily. One of my, I don't know if I can call it a motto or a rule, is do the loving thing, right? And primarily for women. So I want to be remembered as someone who changed women's lives. I don't know if that sounds overly ambitious, but
no, you are in the right platform, because here we are amplifying the voices of women, and this is about women.
yeah,
Okay.
I feel like the
That's
world has
interesting.
been hard on women,
Yes.
and we need to find those spaces and create those spaces that allow us to be our authentic selves. And so I want to be that person that does that and is remembered for that.
And to feel safe.
To feel
and
safe.
Be ourselves
Yeah.
and safe.
And self-actualize safely, yeah. All of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. There are younger women out there who are looking at you and say, I want to be a creative writer. I want to be a content writer. I want to be like her. What advice would you give them?
Do it. Do it. It's like I said earlier, it's about being true to yourself. So there's no formula to life. There's no one way to do anything. Just like in relationships, there's no formula to relationships. There's no one way to be in a relationship, to get into a relationship. Just like there's no one way to be a woman, there's no one way to be a writer. So be authentic, commit to it, and do it.
But where do they start? Do you start with journaling? Do a course?
So there's so many different types of writing, right? I think for me, all of my friends, most of my friends are writers, but we're all writing different things. Some are journalists, some are researchers, but they're all trying to find that space where they can do that authentically. So again, in terms of where to start, I would say start by figuring out what kind of writing you want to do.
Okay.
And maybe a different way to look at that is to say, start by figuring out who you want to speak to.
Okay.
So if you want to be a writer, who do you want to write for?
Okay.
And then that will sort of guide you to say, oh, I want to write to people I want to encourage people to be more politically minded, for example. Then you go into journalism or whatever it is. So for me, my path was creative writing, right? Because I wanted to write stories and I wanted to write nonfiction specifically for women. So the other thing that I do right now is I also write journals, right? And workbooks. So it's really about deciding who you want your audience to be and what you want your message to be, and that is what will guide you in how to get started.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's sound advice. Thank you. I know you are young, but what
Am
are
I?
the two things? Yes, you are. You are still young. You're only old when you're in your 80s.
Okay,
You can
okay.
take
Then
the
I'm
title.
young. Yeah.
Yes, you are still young. What are the two advices that you've learned from life so far?
Wow. Number one, do the loving thing, right? Like I said, it's easier, it's safer, it's better for everyone, you know. It's better for you. And then the second one, gosh, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but authenticity, right? In self-expression. Yeah, those are the two things. Be yourself and try to do the loving thing in all things. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. If people want to hire you or they want you to write their story, I'm sure you're going to find a lot of people who want you to write something for them. Where can they find you?
The best way to reach me is through LinkedIn. I am Noluthando Leonorah on LinkedIn. And to email me, noluthandoleonorah@gmail.com.
Okay.
Because of the sort of writing that I do, I don't advertise, right? And partly because of my own beliefs about my own spirituality, right? I don't really, at this moment, advertise. I probably will in the future, but for now, I don't. But yeah, those are the best ways to reach me.
Okay.
For now.
Anything that you can think about that you want to share with others out there that you haven't touched on here?
No, I think my primary message is be authentic and find your own happiness. That's what you're here for. That's it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Short and sweet. Okay, there you have it. That was Noluthando Leonorah. I think get in contact with her, get in touch with her and see what stories she can tell for you, because you are your stories and she is her story. You can say that she is authentic in every way that you can think possible. That was our episode of Women in Leadership with Vee, and Women in Leadership with Vee was brought to you by Diversity SA. Diversity SA is a management consulting company in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Share our video, like us, subscribe. That was it for today. Thank you and goodbye.